Why, hello there. Long time no see, handsome. How you doing?
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
How you doing, brother?
Tired. Been up early this morning working hard. You know how it is. Wasn't quite set up before we launched. Just still making sure everything's cool. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, man. I've been doing good. I actually, by the time this posts, it might be announced, it might not. But I'm going to be sponsoring, not hosting, sponsoring a local festival.
Oh snap!
I'm one of many sponsors for it, but I'm planning on setting up the podcast at this festival and just interview or talk to, not really interview because I don't do that shit, talk to random people and even performers.
Because you didn't do that, allow me to introduce myself to anyone who doesn't know this beautiful face of mine. I am the history maker, the belt taker, the main effing man, D.A. Morris. I am a professional wrestler based out of West Virginia. So I've wrestled around West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and I am one of two recognized professional wrestlers with cerebral palsy. So I have an interesting story to tell.
Yes, you do. And you have. I love your story. You've told it several times, and I never get tired of it because it's very inspirational. I know also you and I both deal with our own mental health issues and shit. So like
Yeah.
that's also inspirational that you're dealing with that and you wake up every day, you win the titles, you kick
Yeah.
ass.
And for anyone who wants to question me, I have won the Mon Valley Pro tag team titles 4 times. I am a 2 time MVP Masters champion and a 1 time MVP Monsters Division champion. The only man to hold the Masters and the Monsters at the same time. And I'm the first man to hold those 3 titles, which makes me the first triple crown of MVP, at least for those 3 championships. Not too damn bad for a man with cerebral palsy. I'd like to think so myself.
Because technically, when you're in that ring, you're fighting two battles. You're fighting the battle within yourself, your body, and shit, and you're also fighting your opponent.
Oh,
So it's a handicap
uh,
match every night.
technically, technically, I'm a literal handicap match every night. Yeah.
Didn't you recently fight the other wrestler with cerebral palsy? Or
Yes, yes, I did. Me and a gentleman by the name of Gregory Irons. Uh, if you don't know who he is, look him up. Right now, he's been going through some issues because he tore up his bicep, which meant he went from having one good arm to no good arms.
Jesus,
And they've been recording his recovery, and they're doing a show on YouTube. Real inspirational stuff.
that's wild. Speaking of inspirational, since we're going to be talking a little wrestling,
Oh, just a
re-
little bit.
recently we had two retirement matches from wrestlers that were kind of retired but then returned, if that's fair to say. Um,
That's
one of
wrestling, but okay.
there is no retirement in wrestling. That's kind of like music, but but
There's always one more performance, man. Always one.
the first one I'm going to get to was sad to watch, yet is inspiring at his age that he even tried. Was Dory Funk.
God bless him. Uh, didn't
83
watch
years
the
old.
match. Didn't watch the match, but I knew of it. Saw a clip of him in the barbed wire and an explosion, and I'm like, okay, I didn't need to see an 80-something-year-old man get blown up today. I
Me
really didn't.
either. I didn't watch it all the way through, and I'm not even sure where to find it. It might not even be legal anymore. But I watched it, and it it seemed like they took care of him, which is weird to say in a death match. But most of the clips I saw was just him throwing punches and other people taking bumps.
Yeah. Again, 80-something years old. He's not doing X Division freaking dives off the Ultimate X, which, by the way, I can't believe that guy didn't seriously get hurt. Um,
It's fucking wild though, because with Dory though, it's inspirational if you see why he did it. He did it in memory of his brother who passed a year prior.
Right.
And Terry was one of them wrestlers. Also, the whole Funkin' family, pun intended, never knew how to retire.
No, none of them.
And speaking of not knowing how to retire, another tragic one, Sabu. Sabu was one of my favorites. Dude was fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And he defied odds though because his death is very tragic. But if I'm not mistaken, didn't he have a health issue in like 2006 and they did like a benefit show for him?
I'm not 100% sure because Sabu's one of those guys that, like, clearly he was hurt. He was in bad shape. But again, try throwing yourself into barbed wire, like he did for 30 some odd years, multiple times, wrestling guys like Abyss, who, again, bigger dude, tossing him around. That kind of stuff wears and tears on your body. And so it's hard to say, like, where his health problems start and end kind of thing. I know right now the organization that hosted his retirement match just a few weeks before he passed away is under a lot of heat right now with people. A lot of people blaming them for his death, but I don't think that's fair.
It's not. It's a double-edged sword because at the end of the day, Sabu is one of them guys where if it was up to him, he probably would have died in that ring.
Apparently, he was saying that this is my retirement match. Maybe.
Yeah, he did an interview with Big J Okerson 2 days before his death, and he's like, I wasn't happy with the outcome, so we're working on another match.
That's what I mean. And a lot of people are upset, apparently, because he took kratom before just to function, walk. And again, as someone with cerebral palsy, let me stress, there are many days I can't wake up, I can't move, whatever. So I can't bash anybody for just doing what they feel like they got to do to function. I don't know much about kratom. I've done a little research since the story came out, and it doesn't really sound like it's that. It doesn't sound like it's something like that should be viewed as like, oh my god, I can't believe he was taking. Like, you can buy it over the counter at a gas station.
Here's the thing,
It's not.
It seems like it's more so people as a whole, not you or I or anybody in particular, but a vast majority of people. They see kratom or a naturalistic herb and think, oh my God, it's not prescribed by a doctor. But at the end of the day, it's no different than if he was to take a fucking Tylenol before the match.
Right. I figured you'd have an opinion on this. Being
kratom,
that me.
You have Sabu, a guy who has a history of drug abuse, a guy who has a history of beating the fuck out of his body. I doubt kratom was the main thing that led to his death.
So I'm watching a clip. Rob Van Dam and Taz and one other guy who I didn't recognize. They were all talking about Sabu's death, and they were talking about the kratom thing. And Rob Van Dam pulls out a bottle of Ric Flair brand kratom, took a triple dose of this son of a bitch, and was perfectly fine.
Kratom?
Sat there. Again, I've never messed with anything like that, nor do I really have an interest in anything like that. But hearing people talk about it and seeing stuff like that, I'm like, why are people acting like this? Like they drugged him up with a needle and shit before the match and sent him out the curtain. Like, that's not how this went down.
Kratom is one of them things that's it's hard to talk because I know people that take kratom and it helps them significantly. Now, in higher doses all the time, it could lead to health problems, but that's with anything that you take way too much of.
Heck, eat too many cheeseburgers. Look what happens to you.
If you even eat, not even eating, if you take too much of anything, it will have, for long periods of time, it will have a negative effect. And with kratom, it's also iffy because it's similar to that shroom thing that was going on. There was unregulated shroom bars or whatever that was causing people to get sick. It's because it's not regulated or tested. If you buy kratom from an unreliable source, you don't know what else is in there.
Yeah. Well, that's with anything, like recently with all the fentanyl concerns that everybody's been having. So I completely get what you mean there.
And the only issue I saw with the match, looking back, and I'm a guy looking in, so I don't know, but it looked like Sabu was not physically ready to go. Because if you watch the beginning of the match, he hit his knee, he hit his shoulder, he looked like he was ready to call it off, and then something snapped, and we saw like Sabu of the fucking 2000s out of nowhere.
Well, first and foremost, the barbed wire in that match was not set up like it should have been. Because if you look at like his matches with Abyss or Terry Funk, as everybody's been comparing this to, the barbed wire was supposed to be put up in a way that where when you put your weight on it, it would hold you there a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you just saw they were hitting it and just completely gone, collapsed.
It was reminiscent of the barbed wire in Born to Be Wired when Sabu fought, who was it, Terry Funk, and he ripped his arm.
That was Terry, and then he taped the thing up and wrestled for like another 5 minutes.
Yeah, that match was the way the barbed wire was set up was just like that. It wasn't because the barbed wire just crumbled when they fell on it and they got trapped. Sabu got stuck in it.
Yeah, head first.
Yeah, and I got to give him credit. Like a lot of people are saying that insane bump onto the concrete might have been what caused his final, and it might have, because that was an intense fucking hit to the head on concrete.
Yeah. Some I was watching, I completely agree with this. I never want to get saved by the Sandman.
I guess that wasn't the original plan, from what I heard.
Well, only because by the time he gets to the ring and starts saving you, you've been beaten up for about 20 minutes. So Joey Janela was putting it out there. That was the guy who wrestled Sabu in this match, saying he got knocked out when he landed on the ground, and Sandman's music woke him up.
Mm-hmm.
Then he comes out and says, well, no, that was a lie. He was fine because you really think we were going to let that happen to a 60-year-old man and then keep wrestling? No. So he was adding to the myth of Sabu.
I think they're trying to save face because you saw that puddle of blood next to his fucking head.
Well, yeah, but he was all cut up. You can't see. You want to say hi? Hold up. Hi, tell everybody hi.
Hi.
My little one. All right, go play, baby girl.
I think there's a lot of blurred lines that when it comes to that match, because a lot of people are going to try to save face because Sabu's no longer here.
Yep.
And they're trying to shift blame. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying that's what happens in these situations. Sorry, go ahead.
It doesn't help that here's this guy, just had a death match, barbed wire, whatever, bleeding, busted up. He's 60 years old. He looks 80. And by God, did he look just like his uncle. Like when you see him without his shirt on at points during the match, he looks like Sheik, the original Sheik.
And Sheik's last match, let's add.
But just, again, what do you expect when for the past 30, 40 years he's been moonsaulting tables and botching dives and hitting his head off concrete floors and you know what I mean? What do people expect him to look like?
But let's be honest, though, like, he got it from his uncle because his uncle did the same. He pretty much lived a similar life to his uncle. His uncle wrestled his last match and died not that close after, but he didn't die too long after.
I'm not 100% sure about that. I'd have to look up details. But the whole point being, and by the way, he looked like $1 million. For some reason, the white suit with the headpiece, it all looked great. It was just like I said, a lot of people kind of were turned off because it's a 60-year-old man getting thrown into barbed wire. It's not something a normal person would look at and go, I find that entertaining. Nothing wrong if you do enjoy a barbed wire hardcore match, but there is a line. I think everybody has a line, you know what I mean? And then having him die just weeks later makes everybody kind of realize, oh, snap, look what he did to himself just weeks before he passed.
Okay, I was incorrect. The original Sheik wrestled his last match in 1998. It was actually an ECW FML show. That was his last match. But well, that's his last official match. He was 72 years old. And Sabu was actually his manager at the time, or was in attendance.
Or had walked him to the ring, something like that.
Yeah, he does really look like his uncle, though, bro. Even like young Sabu looks like young Sheik.
That's what I mean. Well, the family resemblance is definitely there.
Damn well could be his dad, not his uncle.
But yeah, a lot of people were like giving him all this BS because of the fact, well, you're wrestling a 60-year-old man. How could you make him? Sabu didn't do anything he didn't agree to do.
And also,
you know,
at the end of the day, Sabu, I think all of us are this way. We would rather go out doing what we love than in a fucking bed dying.
Yeah, I think we can all agree with that.
And the only
doesn't mean I want anybody to drop me on my head in a ring anytime soon, but I get what you're saying.
And the thing is, though, is on the other side of the spectrum, as a watcher of this match, it is sad at moments. It's like watching the wrestling. That final scene.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit, yeah. Especially at the end when Joey's giving him this award plaque and giving him all the praise. And
yeah,
I see exactly what you're saying. Hi. My kid's just waving at me.
There was moments you could tell that he wasn't physically able to go, but you have to give him the resilience because he kept fucking going when he should have just stopped.
There were, yeah. Again, I've watched bits and pieces of the match. I've watched people talk about the match. I didn't see anything too super insane from the bits I've seen that I wouldn't see in a normal Sabu match from 93, 94, 95, whatever. But the problem is this ain't the 90s, so that's you're taking a man who was in his 30s and 40s back then. Now he's in his 60s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Wrestling's weird. Let me put it like this. In any other sport, football, baseball, boxing, they all acknowledge time will slow them down. Time takes away their abilities. Time does all these things. For some reason in wrestling, the more time passes, the more people are like, I bet he's got one more run in him.
Yeah,
man, he's looking good.
People tend to forget that even if you look good, it doesn't mean you can still physically. But like you said, yes, it is Sabu. And the match we watched was a typical Sabu match, but that doesn't make it less intense because I think it makes it more intense because he's a 60-year-old man with messed up knees, a messed up back.
Yeah. But I think it's with wrestling fans, the wrestler becomes the legend in a way, and they're like, well, I got to go out there and perform like I did 30 years ago. That's what they paid for. But at the same time, the wrestling fan standard might be a little too high.
I think that's, and it's a weird comparison, but I think you would agree. Pro wrestling isn't viewed like any other sport. It's more so viewed like musicians. We're like, they got one more tour in them. They got one more this, one more that.
It's the goodbye tour, right? John Cena right now is doing that whole goodbye tour thing, which, by the way, great stuff. I still find it enjoyable. But you're right. They treat it like we're musicians who can still pick up a guitar and sit in a chair and play, even though we can't stand and play anymore. And it's not the same thing.
And what's interesting, though, is the only wrestler that I know of, offhand, famous wrestler anyway, that was able to pull off barely being able to walk and still put on a damn good match was the last 20 years of Terry Funk's career. Besides you. The last 20 years of Terry Funk's career, if you watch his matches, he crawled a lot.
Yeah.
Because he always played the role of him getting the shit beat out of him, and he was fighting the person from his knees, and then he would get up on the ropes and then fight
like
again.
A good baby face does. Yeah, I shouldn't say words like that, but all right. I folks, so you know that this is a little unusual for us here because we're recording this early in the day, and I've already been up and done yard work, and so I'm a little tired. Again, a man with cerebral palsy got yard work, right?
You're good, bro. And honestly, I plan on doing a lot more of these more often. I just had like a mental health break. So if you want to do another one that's longer, if you want to cut it short today,
No, we still. I promised you folks an hour. I'm giving you an hour of my time. And when the main effing man gives you his promises, he keeps them.
So, in the wrestling world, I've not really been watching a whole lot of wrestling other than the Sabu shit because it intrigued me. But
All right. I wanted to talk about this, so you just set me up perfectly. As much as I love this sport and I love professional wrestling and I live it, I breathe it, I do all the. There is too much goddamn wrestling.
that's why I quit watching it.
It, and like there's this weird sense from people. It's like you need to watch everything. If you weren't, you're not a true fan. You don't really love it unless you watch every single indie on YouTube, every single episode of Raw, every single episode of SmackDown, every single episode of NXT, every single episode of Evolve on Tubi because it's free. Why aren't you watching a free wrestling show? AEW Collision.
I think it's always been this way, but it's more relevant because of internet.
Um, we've kind of hit a boom a little bit where people are interested in wrestling again, and because of that comes growth. But I'm worried that it's growing too fast and that people are going to lose interest very quickly. And then next thing you know, the business is going to be worse off because people try to do too much too soon.
What do you think of because we've reached a point where history is doing a 180 because back in the 90s, 80s and stuff, there was a lot of wrestling companies, but a lot of them were under the banner of NWA.
And there was a difference. And the difference being
They were local. And
the availability to everything now. It's not locked to regions, it's not locked to states. I could watch an indie in California right now. I don't live in California.
yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
And there was the acts that were really, really popular in like California and shit that wasn't popular elsewhere. And then when a big star that was the touring star would go there, sometimes they would lose to the big star of that state, giving that state more notoriety.
Um, Basically now it's just like if a style starts to pick up momentum, the second it gets picked up by TV, everybody does it.
Yep.
So it's very hard to stay on the cutting edge when you got John Moxley taking bumps into nails and having it stick into his back. It's like, where's our line? When do people say like, okay, here's where you don't go?
My thing is, I never thought in a million years when I was younger that because I was a huge wrestling fan when I was younger, more so than now because it's just too overwhelming now. Uh, I used to think that like CZW was crazy. Now it's on national television. The same
Yeah.
shit.
Well, I'm sure they've toned it down a little bit to get on national television, but my point
No, I
being,
mean AEW is doing the shit that they used to do on national
oh yeah,
television.
on TBS. But you know, the show, the channel that used to have American Dad and all the funny haha shows. Yeah, let's watch a man get thrown off a steel cage and bash through glass and barbed wire
Take a suplex onto a bat with nails sticking out of it.
and have it stick to your back. Yeah, just
I
fucking.
don't know. Would you ever do hardcore shit like that? And what is your personal line? Like, how hardcore
So
would you get?
so I've done some things. I've been put through tables. I've been hit with things over the head. Obviously. Um, so my line is hard to say because, like, okay, it'll be easier for me to tell you what I wouldn't do
Mm-hmm.
than say, oh, I'll do everything up to this. Not a fan of light tubes.
I don't think
I feel
anybody.
like, well, clearly somebody is because they keep doing it.
It's worth that hot
But
dog and the handshake.
but exactly the money to do something like that's just not there for a lot of indies. Um, After seeing the footage of what happened to freaking Nick Gage, hell no, because
Or,
he fucking died on his way to the hospital.
or David
Um,
Arquette.
David Arquette. Well, David Arquette wasn't that bad because I watched the footage back. But then there's also the fact that, and again, if you do deathmatch wrestling and that's your thing, cool, not bashing you. But it's not the cleanest ring work you see either. You know what I
Well,
mean? A lot of
they're making up for it.
Right, and again, not to bash anybody, because I'm somebody who has to cover their limitations of what he can and can't do. I'm just saying I've noticed a lot of people lean heavy on blood and gore to hide the fact that maybe they don't have the cleanest hip toss or suplex or whatever.
But at the end of the day, though, it's still a form of entertainment.
Absolutely.
It still
Again,
takes talent.
I'm making this perfectly clear. I have no problem with deathmatch wrestlers if that's the style you want to work.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly fine with that. I'm saying personally, where I would go with this, I wouldn't do glass, light tubes, like I said. Thumbtacks, I'd be all right with, I'm sure, but you know what I mean? I don't want to do anything that could seriously cause major injury because remember, my recovery time takes a lot more than most people.
So no Legos.
I've done Legos. Actually, I was going to bring that up. I've done Legos. It was a superplex from the top rope and into a pile of Legos. So that was fun. That was my idea. So I was like, cool.
Bad as you'd think.
I didn't feel anything. The adrenaline from coming off the top rope and landing, your adrenaline's so high you don't feel nothing until many, many hours later.
What's insane to me is I've heard interviews with like people like Sabu and Terry Funk. They said it looks intense, but barbed wire isn't as bad as it looks.
I'd be all right to do a barbed wire match, depending. Like, depending on what kind of barbed wire match we're talking about here. Are we doing, because I've seen a barbed wire bat match where it was one bat wrapped in a barbed wire thing. That was the only barbed wire they had. I was like, that if we're going to do the full spectacle, I'm cool with doing the ropes, the beds maybe a little bit, but just to have, like, I don't want to be sandwiched into anything, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I've seen Abyss do that, and I'm like, oh my God.
It's dangerous, but it's also, if done properly, it's not as bad as it looks, I've been told. Like, you have your moments like Terry Funk getting fucking almost throat slit on barbed wire.
Again, it's just knowing what the spot is, preparing this stuff properly, and knowing what you're going to be feeling afterwards. Like you're committing to that.
Mm-hmm.
But like I've seen guys take weed whackers to dude's chest. No, I'm not doing that. There's not a the weed whacker turned on across the fucking chest.
I've seen that, and I've also seen people take that sickle, like it's like a
no sickles, no knives, none of that crap.
Somebody is like, I think there's a form of masochism. I think they get off to that kind of shit.
So and again, no kink shaming, no issue if that's the thing. But there's the one thing I'm begging people: stop bringing your freaking kids to death matches. Oh my God. When I do see the footage of these death matches, who do we see sitting front row but little Timmy? And glass and barbed wire and all this stuff flying around the ring.
I am a fan still of hardcore wrestling, but not deathmatch wrestling in certain instances because it's entertaining, but it's depressing because like these people are putting their careers on the line for what?
Yeah, not very much, unfortunately. Now, let me tell you what happened to me last Saturday. And you tell me how hardcore this sounds. Since we're talking hard.
Defending cerebral palsy and you're getting in the ring is pretty hardcore, but continue.
Thank you. Defending the MVP match Monsters Division title against Joshua Kavad and Brother Lion last Saturday, I was forcefully dunked in a ducky pool and was hit with a super kick and left to drown in the pool.
Oh, that's neat. I'm glad you're okay.
It was. I'm in discussion with legal teams and MVP Commissioner John. I'm not done with you. You've screwed me out of everything that day, and I'm not done with you. I'm not done with anybody on MVP because I am the main effing man. I am Mr. MVP. I'm the history maker. I'm the belt taker. I'm the goddamn king. And what the king says, the king gets. Do you understand me?
Dude, that's intense. Though. That's some Japanese shit, like Japanese wrestling shit. Which them Japanese wrestlers are on some new shit. Like,
Piranha death matches are why?
that's where I was gonna go. I'm like, them people in Japan take death matches, and they're like, no, we're making them funeral matches. Like that's
since we're talking Japan, I did see footage or at least pictures. Apparently, somebody else is wrestling under the gimmick of Hayabusa.
really.
Yes, some pictures have emerged of somebody in the full mask Hayabusa gimmick. And again, in wrestling, especially in Mexico, Japan, where masks and gimmicks are more prevalent, it is normal traditionally to hand gimmicks down or hand personas down to other people. I just feel it's a little weird seeing someone else not being called like Hayabusa Junior, not being called Hayabusa Alpha or what. No, just Hayabusa. It's like it's odd. It really is odd.
It is odd, but it's a different culture too. Because, like you said, they do that in Mexico and Japan a lot. And I know who was it? La Parca. There was like two of them at one time, and the
Oh
original
God, there's the original one's passed away now, but I can't remember if that was the one in WCW because there was La Parca and then there was LA Park because they had rights to the park, but he didn't change anything about the look or gimmick. And then there's like three other La Parcas. It gets confusing without a map.
And then now there's a La Parca that wrestles in the same company the original La Parca wrestled in, but they're not calling him La Parca Jr., he's just La Parca.
That's what I mean. The fact that they're just, it's a lot of like how comic book characters are. No one ever really dies,
Yeah, that's my
kind of a
question
thing.
for you is where do we blur the line? Because wrestling at the end of the day is entertainment. It's no different than a movie. It's just more brutal on your body. So when is it okay to replace a wrestler with a different person but keep the character? Is it if they're wearing a mask it's okay, or if the person resembles the character, or is it not okay at all? Like where, because they tried that with
It's
Diesel and it didn't work.
it's okay when, in my opinion, like if you have proper permission.
Mhm.
Like for example, the Patriot, the guy who currently does it on the Indies, is not the original Patriot. He's somebody who lifted the gimmick from the original one. The original one said he didn't give him permission to do it,
Mhm.
but he still. Same with Doink the Clowns. Oh my gosh, Doinks are like I hear people talk about. Hey, Doink the Clown's going to be there. I'm like, okay, which one? Because there's so many. Because it's so easy to just be Doink. You know
And
what
the
I mean?
original was Matt Bourne, wasn't it? Matt Bourne.
Yes, it was Matt Bourne. But I've seen guys do Doink gimmicks who were never Big Doink. Uh, but they do it because people pay to see Doink the Clown. Well, he's an easy name to get because all you have to do is paint a guy up and dress him up like the character. Um, but I don't, like I said, I'm not a fan of that. It's one thing if it's handed down, if you have proper permission from family or what, companies owning gimmicks and then doing that, it just feels very corporate. And I think that's why, like you were saying about Diesel and Razor didn't work because these weren't masked characters being handed down to new people. They were literally just, hey, the old people left. Screw you. We own the rights to the names and gimmicks. So not realizing it's not the names and gimmicks, it's the people they enjoyed.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, with the way I'm perceiving what you're saying is it's okay if it's like a masked character and it's approved by the right channels, and but only have one person at a time playing that fucking character.
Well, it also depends on story and whatever you're doing. Because like we've had like evil versions of people show up to fight the good versions, and
The
I'm
most
waiting for
notorious
another.
one was the Undertaker.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not uncommon, but if now that there's a new high, how long before a new Lucian Thunder Liger shows up?
True.
Because
Or the
he
Willow Dragon.
right, like that's what I mean. And do we treat that lineage all as the same lineage, or do we treat it as new lineage? Like, you know what I mean? Like that's where it gets confusing. Because
Yeah, because
technically, under that
all the
concept,
achievements.
Tiger Mask.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. You had a bit of a pause there, and I thought you was done. Continue. I'm sorry.
Like Tiger Mask has been around since what, the '60s, and he's still like there's a guy still playing Tiger Mask. So it's like how long do their careers, quote unquote, carry for?
Yeah, and I have another question. Let's say, okay, the current Tiger Mask obviously isn't the original, right?
Yeah.
So if that guy decides to retire, does he have a retirement match as Tiger Mask, or does he have a retirement match as the guy playing Tiger Mask?
I don't know. I've never wrestled in Japan. I've never worked the Japanese styles, as far as I'm aware, other than stiffing the crap out of people.
It goes back to wrestlers never retire.
Uh,
there was also like there's different canes too, but those are
yep.
funny. There's I think all the canes on the indie scene should go to WWE and wrestle Glenn Jacobs.
That stuff I'm all for, because that's not ripping someone off. That's straight up parodying stuff, and I'm all for parodies. I'm all for making fun of stuff like that.
You know what's hilarious is the original character that Glenn played before Isaac Yankem. There was the Christmas tree monster.
Yep. It was the Christmas tree preacher. Thank you very much.
Technicalities. And then after that, he was Diesel.
Yeah, he played Diesel. He played Yankum. He did some other names before he even got to Smoky Mountain when he first started, I think. I just can't remember them.
You know what's a lost gem match that I wish I could find, but it's nearly impossible to find anywhere. It's probably one of the most rarest matches ever. You can find promos for it, but you can't find the match. It is New Jack versus The Undertaker at Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
I've heard about it. I've never found it either, and I've looked.
I found promos with New Jack. I found even Undertaker promos, but I've not seen the match.
New Jack got, by the way, something else that's really been messing with me. Like, the generation I grew up with is now the old generation I tell my kids about. Like, I remember back in my day, there was this guy called Sabu, and he did this crazy, not like your guys is doing crazy shit. His stuff had class, you know? I'm that guy now.
And as you're talking, you realize that your dude didn't have class. It's just nostalgia talking.
That's what I mean. It just feels weird because in my mind, Steve Austin, The Rock, all these people will look and act the same way forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
and then you see, like, yeah.
I saw an interview. It was with Dutch Mantle.
Dutch Mantel is how you pronounce that properly.
Yeah, Dutch. Dirty Dutch. That's what I call him. Wasn't that his name in WCW? Dirty
Yes.
Dutch?
He was Dirty Dutch Mantel.
Dutch was doing an interview, and well, his podcast. I think it's his podcast, and he was talking about New Jack, and he was talking about Gypsy Joe because he personally knew Gypsy, and he was like,
"I've seen the footage. I've seen the footage of what New Jack has done to Gypsy Joe." Yes.
Well, according to Dutch, he's like, the fact that he was that tough, New Jack couldn't knock him out. He beat the shit out of him, but he failed at knocking him out. He came close. So if this was 20 years earlier, I think the match would have gone much differently.
Possibly.
Because I guess Gypsy was a tough motherfucker at one time.
Apparently, that's the stories I always heard too. Is that like when he's supposed to be this person of like hard, invincible kind of guy, that was his gimmick. Even in his later years, that was his gimmick. Cause he could take a punch and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that footage is a little hard to watch, both for the language being used in it and the way people were treating. Like, okay, I'm not saying New Jack should have beaten the shit out of an old man. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's no reason why the people around him should be insulting him, calling him this, words I'm not going to repeat on this podcast, obviously. Hitting him with purses and all. Like, okay, that's what I mean. Okay, yeah, it wasn't cool he was doing that, but it wasn't cool that other people were getting involved who should not have been involved. And it also reminds me, hey, where's security? I can't stay. Oh, that's a whole nother bag of worms for me.
I'm
All
gonna
right, you
play,
want me to get?
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate though, real quick. And yeah, that match shouldn't have gone the way it did. But at the end of the day, Gypsy Joe told New Jack, I can take it. And he refused to work with him. He headbutted him in the fucking nose. Like, you can go into the Semetics. Maybe Gypsy Joe wasn't all there in the head at that age from all the hits to the head. But he
Possibly.
shouldn't have been in that fucking ring if that was the case.
Very true. The problem, and this is a problem a lot of older guys have. Now, mind you, I'm 12 years in. I've been doing what I do now for 12 years, both as a manager and as a wrestler. Now, I've been wrestling longer than I've been managing.
Mm-hmm.
There is a huge problem with older guys going up to other guys who have 10, 15 years and treating them like they have two.
Yeah.
And that was the problem with Gypsy Joe. New Jack wasn't no spring chicken, and Joe was treating him like, oh, I'll teach you a thing or two. It's like, no. Respect shows respect. You know what I mean? Kind
I
of
think
the thing.
it's part of the ego, though, because older wrestlers don't want to admit that they are past their prime. They want to still go and be that guy because there's
It's
that
because
pressure.
like we said earlier, they want to still be that legend. They still want to be that myth, that character that they've created for
And I think
themselves.
we can kind of blame the fans in a way for feeding into that.
Yeah, because they expect everybody to be here forever.
Yeah. Like,
So
even when you hear, like, for instance, Shawn Michaels' theme song and he comes out on NXT, people are like, maybe he has one more match. And the dude can barely walk.
right, and you're seeing more of the age on his face now than you ever have. He doesn't look like the Shawn Michaels. He doesn't even look like he did when he retired.
Like, no
You know what I
disrespect
mean?
to Shawn. Shawn was incredible. He's probably still is. But, like, you got to know the limits. But if he wanted to have one final match, let him.
I I think Saudi Arabia was a bad enough note. We don't want to ruin anything more.
Oh, it was, but at the end of the day, it's his legacy to choose to do, is what I'm saying. Like, if a
Oh
wrestler
yeah, and
wants
I'm
to do
sure I'm
it,
sure he wasn't crying, sleeping in that big fat check. I'm sure he wasn't crying that bad about it.
and at the end of the day, though, is like the perfect retirement match. There's no such thing because you either retire too
No,
early
I
or
just
too late.
go ahead. I'm
You
sorry.
either retire too early or too late. You retire when you're still on top, but you can still go, or you're just way past your prime. You're like, oh, maybe I should stop now.
No, best retirement match ever. And I don't care who's watched this. You can argue with me. I don't care. You're not changing my mind. Ric Flair, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania.
And then he returned 2 months later.
No, no, he retired, full on retired. WWE didn't use him for years. They didn't even really have him on TV, and then he went and ruined it by wrestling in TNA.
But we can also get into the Semetics. When people have a retirement match, is that them retiring from their career or retiring from that company?
I would like to think of it as retiring from your in-ring activities
See, that's
because
some
you hear a lot.
but some wrestlers just retire from that company because that company pressured them to do so.
Understood. There have been, like I said, Ric Flair even said he didn't really want to, but McMahon talked him into doing this big thing, and it again, great retirement match. Had that whole segment on Raw the next night, and he felt like Ric Flair, and he hasn't felt like Ric Flair since then, and it's because he kept going back and going back and going back.
Well, you gotta
Shawn
find
Michaels had a perfect retirement, ruined it by going back. It's
bro,
the curse, man.
bro. In Ric Flair's case, you have to fund them divorces.
Uh, uh,
I
yeah, a
think
little bit.
I think a lot of it is people in general just want attention and they want to keep that attention. Like with Ric Flair, he's continuing with business endeavors because he can't wrestle. He's still doing promos.
And that's fine. It's the aspect of being in the middle of the ring and being the focal point of things that guys have problems letting go of.
Yeah. And Ric Flair
Apologies if you can hear my dog.
at 70 years old, though, Ric Flair still has that aura, but nobody really wants to see him wrestle again because we know what that equates.
Right, he almost died during his last one.
And now he's talking about doing it again.
Like, no. That's the thing. That, like I said, we all have trouble accepting. Our times pass, which is why right now I'm trying to enjoy my stuff as much as I can. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
Because
and
I'm not going to be at this level in another 30 years. I know that.
yeah, and like you never know what'll happen either. You don't know if your palsy will get worse. You don't know if you'll stay the same. So like, and
You can see my hands, like, they shake real bad sometimes.
the thing is, a lot of people don't realize, especially in wrestling, you don't have to be a wrestler to stay in the business. You don't have to
No,
be very good.
I've had friends retire from their in ring stuff, become managers, become referees, just even being the guy who helps set up the ring.
Mhm.
They just because you're done putting on the boots doesn't mean you have to be done with being involved or being around people, you know?
What do you think of the legends that return and they have like the big match, but it's a tag team match where they're barely ever, if any, in the ring and they're just profiting off their name being there?
That is what I'm talking about when it comes to guys not wanting to let go of the spotlight. It's like I see why they're like, oh, they got to do less. They got to do less. It doesn't mean the expectation is still there.
Yeah. Like their
So
name's there, but they can't perform.
I know, and I feel like it's actually a disservice to everybody else in the match
Mhm.
because nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares what you're doing. We're just waiting for the other guy to get tagged in, do his 3 spots, so we can all go yay and go home. I feel
Mhm.
bad for those people.
I do too, but at the end of the day, I think those people are also there for the same purpose, and that's to show honor to that legend.
Yeah, like I said, I think Jim Cornette mentioned this on his podcast, which I still find funny because he's not always wrong, unfortunately.
He's
Um,
not, but he's also such a fucking intolerable. Anyway, continue.
but he mentioned, okay, well, what's wrong with having him come out and accepting an award, do his pose, maybe have him throw a chair at a guy's head, and then he goes home? Why did he have to do a full barbed wire match at 60 freaking years old? And again, obviously that was Sabu's choice. He did it by his own free will, et cetera, et cetera. But I see what he's saying. If you want to use a legend properly, have them come. Okay, have them endorse your guys. You know what I mean? Come out
Yeah.
maybe. Well, for example, like I've been chopped by Ricky Steamboat, and all Ricky did was throw a couple punches at people and chop me, and that's all he did. But he endorsed the guy in the ring. Like stuff like that's fine. I'm cool with stuff like that. I don't need to see somebody in their 70s taking a fucking superplex off the top rope.
The,
I just
the
don't need to see
longer we
that.
the longer we talk, the older Sabu became. We started off. He
I
was 60.
wasn't talking about Sabu specifically, but okay.
By the end of this, he was 90 years old. No, I know what you're getting at. I'm just fucking with you. But like, it's a weird case though because it's by person to person basis. Because we got wrestlers on the indie scene that are like 60 and they're still going strong.
Yeah, but they're also not on the road 365 days a year. They're doing one a month.
True, like PCO for instance.
Yeah, exactly. And even with me, I've told this to people before. I don't do a whole lot of indies. There's a lot of indies around me. There's a reason I don't do a lot of them. Is physically, I'm happy with just doing my one a month or my two a month or whatever it may be. I
I
don't
think
need to be busy every weekend.
I think there's too much pressure on pro wrestlers to wrestle more often. I think that culture is toxic and horrible, and it's been proven.
There is.
Look at all the wrestlers that have died young because of it. Why is it that wrestling is the only sport? And I get it, it's predetermined, whatever people want to say, but it's the only sport where you're expected to wrestle or perform that often. Fucking UFC fighters fight once every 2 months. Fucking football players only play like once a week, if that sometimes, and they have a season.
Yep. That's why pro wrestlers are a special breed of people. Like, it really is. Even just doing what I do, the one a month, two a month, whatever, I've had people say, how can you do that?
Mm-hmm.
how could you put yourself through that physically? That looks like that hurts, and which it does. But the point being is, I'm only doing it once a month, or or twice a month, or whatever. These guys are doing it 300 days a year, with travel, with road work, being away from family, being away from friends. It's a lot. It really is a lot. And to, like I said, I don't know how to explain why it is people expect wrestlers to just go, go, go. I think I think a lot of it has to do with it. For a long time, there was a monopoly over wrestling because it was just WWE. So a lot of people got it in your head: if you're not signed by 30, you're never going to get anywhere. And so that the time pressure, the pressure to get that good, the pressure to get the look they like, to get noticed, to get signed, to make the money, because there's only so many spots on TV. There's only so many places you can go to make money. Now it's gotten a little better, obviously, because there's more places doing well, but that's still that stress of you got to make your money while you still physically can, because too many guys want this to be how they pay their bills. So that's where all that pressure comes in, I think.
Yeah, that too. And I guess we're also worried about being successful in other people's eyes that we tend to forget to
So
allow ourselves to feel successful in our own eyes.
exactly. And sorry if I'm chatting too much. This is a podcast. I'm on here to talk.
Bro,
Okay? Not
we
you. I'm saying
ain't about
anybody's
all
bitching about me.
that.
But let me explain something to you. Because I feel you. That's why if you look on my social medias, what am I bragging about? All the stuff I've done. Even though I'm on the indie level, I'm wrestling for Mon Valley Pro Wrestling at City Breach Church in Charleroi, Pennsylvania, 1006 Follow Field Avenue, Charleroi, Pennsylvania. We do shows there first of every month. I'm still a success because I'm a man with cerebral palsy who's won multiple championships. Am a Triple Crown winner. Has lived his dream by being tag team champions with his twin brother. I've done all these things. And I've never been on WWE TV. Probably never will. But nobody can take away what I've done. I can be proud of that. I'm the leader of the goddamn Black Sheep Society.
People like
Which means
people like to define success in wrestling as whether or not you made it to WWE, but most of the best wrestlers that went to WWE, their character got ruined, or it just ruined their aura. Look at Sting.
a lot of that has to do with again, WWE. Have that on your resume. That's a big deal. Then you add the fact that you're a legend who's never been everywhere but WWE. It was literally the last hill to climb, but it was still under that mentality of we didn't make you, so we got to break you kind of thing. And I don't approve of that.
No, and you don't need WWE to be successful or be a household name. And Sting
Heck,
proved
look what Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, the Bullet Club, all them did just 6-7 years ago. They changed the freaking wrestling world because they bet on themselves and they ended up birthing AEW and changing the whole landscape of professional wrestling. That's why we have a blow up right now. That's why WWE's blown up right now. That's why you see more eyes on companies like NWA, JCW, GCW, and all these other indies are doing a lot better because wrestlers decided to make something of themselves.
Do you think Cody Rhodes could possibly be the bridge that brings AEW and WWE together?
No, I don't. Because Tony Khan is very clearly the guy, the top guy. Whatever he says is what they're doing. So to try to say, well, if someone could just come in there and talk to the Young Bucks or talk to Kenny, and no, I don't think they understand how the hierarchy there really is. And he's made it very clear they are the competition. We're competing with them, not working with them.
That's
Even though I
when
love
they first started, they claimed they weren't going to be competition.
but clearly you are. How else are you going to treat being on national television when there's other wrestling companies on a national television. Your competition doesn't matter.
You know what's really sad, though? It's sad because Tony Khan started out, he didn't want to be competition, blah, 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 blah. And now he's kind of turning into like what Eric Bischoff or Vince was.
I don't think he's gone that far with it. I do, however, think for a long time he let too much stuff be personal.
Mm-hmm.
He let it get to him personally, and you can't be like that in wrestling. You got to know when to go, okay, not personal, it's whatever. But also, and this was something he learned very quickly. It's a lot of stuff, and again, talking to a lot of indie companies out there, it's not a free for all. It's not boys' night at the club. There's a script. There's a way to do things. If you're told by the booker, promoter, whatever, this is what we're doing tonight. Don't stand there and bitch and argue. Take your freaking money. Go perform. Do what's being asked of you to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. In too many companies, there's too many guys that like to treat it like boys' club. Like, hey, I'm just here to hang with my friends, play wrestler. No, there's people like me who take this serious. This is still the professional wrestling business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So carry yourselves a little better.
The only thing I would disagree with is, yeah, do your job. But if it's something that morally doesn't sit well with you,
Absolutely. But give you an example. I was asked to wrestle the Invisible Man. I did it. I lost to the Invisible Man. You know how many guys would say, I ain't doing that stupid crap. I'm better than that. My gimmick doesn't match that, brother, or whatever. It's like, guy paid me. He said, here's your money. You're a professional wrestler. I'm booking a professional wrestling match. Make it work.
dude, that's awesome.
And that's what I did.
I've seen people do like similar, like wrestle dolls and broomsticks and shit.
I wrestled a Sasquatch in a dance battle death match where all I did was dance. He danced. I hit him with brass knuckles, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't, that's what I mean. It's ridiculous stuff, but it's stuff you remember. It's stuff the promoter puts you through to make sure that, like, hey, this guy will do what we asked him to do, so we can now give him the big push or whatever. Like, people take stuff way too serious, way too personal, think they're above everything, and you're not.
It's interesting to see. Do you know which wrestler has the best streak, undefeated streak, and also the most titles? Vacant.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, okay. I saw the joke.
Vacant has won a title in every major promotion.
That's true, including mine. I just won the Monsters title off of him, actually. Oh, and not to go on too much of a rant, merchandise is also something you really need to work hard on selling. You can't just put stuff on the table and expect people to buy it. That's all I'm going to say about merch. There's been a lot of ranting and raving going on in my head for the last 6-7 months because I haven't been on the podcast because you've been rebranding and doing all your shtick. So I'm just trying to make sure I cover my bases here.
You're good, bro. You'll be coming back on soon.
Absolutely.
If you forget anything,
So I do have to be getting going here because I do have other things to get to today. Do you mind if I do my plug party?
do your plug party and then we'll wrap up.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to see me do what I do best, and that is get in that ring, kick some butt, and look great doing it, because I am the main effing man, the history maker, the belt taker, the main effing man. Thank you very much. I perform at Mon Valley Pro Wrestling out of Charleroi, Pennsylvania. City Reach Church. That's 1006 Fallowfield Avenue, Charleroi, Pennsylvania. We are going to have our next event there at 3 p.m. on June 7th. That is the 7th at 3 p.m. It's going to be in the afternoon. You come in, enjoy some pizza, family-friendly wrestling. And also, if you're ever around the state of West Virginia and you're looking for a good place to eat, there's a fine, fantastic restaurant, Hannah's Tap House in Newell, West Virginia. Great burgers, great fries, great people, great times.
Awesome, bro. I'm going to do some shout outs too, since you're doing your little shout outs. Is that all that you wanted to say before I do
Um,
mine?
I believe that's all I can think of off the top of my head.
All right, I'm gonna do a couple shout outs. Sorry, my dog's freaking out. But
You're fine.
check out AR Design and Photography. She's a local photographer. She's incredible. Also check out In the Trenches with Ryan Roxy. His podcast is coming back. My buddy Ryan. Also go check out Ghouls Gone Wild. It is Adam Garax, formerly of Pink Sock Podcast. It's his podcast. Also,
Nice.
check out Wrath of the Fallen. They have a new single. Ryan also has a new single, and a lot of other musicians have new singles. I know Crossbone Scully has a new album out that came out in November. Tommy Hendrickson,
Nice.
great stuff. So go
Nice.
check all that out. And also, the Alice Cooper Group. The original Alice Cooper Group are back together and releasing a new album.
Love Alice Cooper.
Have you heard the new single, Black Mamba?
I think you sent it to me. I didn't listen to it yet, though.
His new album is the original lineup of Alice Cooper, and it's going to feature, I think, one or two songs, maybe just one, featuring the original guitarist that passed away in '97. It's a previously unreleased track.
Nice.
But guys, go check out all of that, all of the great people. Also, go check out OVDJ Productions. They put on great shows locally. OVDJProductions, I believe.com. Love you all, and as always, live long, rock hard, and all hail the black sheep.
Yes, sir.